first of all, thank you very much for agreeing to be on this podcast and on this video. I think it's going to be really valuable to people. For those who don't know, the listeners of this station, I've been following you, Huw, for some time. I've got some groups that I'm in common with Huw, and Huw has exploded very recently in the realm of kind of personal finances and understanding how to sort yourselves out when it comes to finances. Huw, do you want to introduce yourself and tell us a bit more about what you do, what businesses you have, etc., and then we'll continue the conversation.
Yeah, absolutely. So my name's Huw. I became financially independent in 2016. I did that through basically investing in stocks, which I started around a decade ago. My goal was very simple: live as cheaply as possible, spend as little as possible, use all the leftover, whack it into stocks, live on the dividends, job done. My goal was starting at 30 to retire by the time I'm 40. And I realized very quickly that there's only so much you can do when it comes to living frugally. So I really pushed the boat out, and I was able to live on less than 10 grand a year whilst I was holding down a mortgage. So that's one of the key figures I share, because this is from someone that didn't live like that at all. I didn't think it was possible, or that I wanted to live like that. But I made it into a bit of a game to see what was possible, and I really actually embraced it and enjoyed that process. However, I was stuck in a mindset, and I see many other people like it, that are just stuck on keeping expenses low, don't spend money. And I knew that when it came to business, if I was able to earn 2, 3, 4 times more, I'd just be able to invest all of that. So should I not just focus in there, because that's limitless? Whilst I could live on 800 quid a month comfortably, but 700 quid that was just tough. I couldn't basically spend any money. So that was it. I'm going to go into business and see what I can do. And tried a few things, and one of the things that stuck for me back in 2015 was publishing books online. And went on a course, experimented with it, and within 7 months I quit my job, quit my 9 to 5. It was covering my living expenses. I had dividends coming in on the side, and I had a safety net, which is all important. By the way, what I did was reckless. I wouldn't recommend it in any way, but I had some peace of mind because I had money coming in from dividends. I had this strategy that was working. The biggest thing holding me back was my job. So I then had 40 hours a week free to attack this thing. I was already just covering my living expenses. So my boss and my boss's boss both said, "You are welcome back anytime." So I had a bit of a safety net. Let's just see what I can do. So I expanded that business. I've been doing that since 2015, it's just a very lucrative part-time job. I've been so grateful for it. That's enabled me to go into property more recently. In 2019, I started learning about property. 2020, I pulled the trigger. I think it was actually end of 21. Technically, we got our first property deal over the line. So I've been doing property for a couple of years, and that's specifically commercial developments into flats, commercial to resi. And more recently, I've decided to try to follow my passion, really, and try and help other people become financially independent, and help people live on less, earn more, invest the difference, and have the freedom to kind of do what they want.
Yeah, amazing. So you mentioned twice in that little speech there about financial independence, right? So first of all, like, everyone's a dummy. What's financial independence? Why are we talking about it? Why is it important?
So financial independence for me is about having investment income that covers your living expenses. So my strategy being, if I could live as cheaply as possible, I don't need as much income,
investment,
meaning I could get there quicker. Why does it matter? Well, I'm writing a video about this, Shiv, and at the moment, my 20s, I was just infuriated. I had all of this passion and energy to dive into something, and I just had no clue what to do. I felt lost with a career, and I'm talking about a decade now of just going around the houses and having quite an average job from a salary perspective, knowing that I'm capable of more and not really seeing it on the other end. And financial independence, when I learned about it, really gave me hope. It was like a revelation, because, well, it doesn't matter what I do. If I become financially independent, I could do anything. I could do jiu-jitsu full time. I could travel the world. I could work, contribute, work for charities. I could do whatever. So
do things that make money or don't make money, isn't it? Do both of those things. Whatever you wanted to do, whether it made money or didn't make money, you could do everything.
It didn't matter. So that freedom of choice just gave me something to go after. And actually, there was the ego side of it as well, because I thought I felt like I was capable of something special, and yet my life hadn't, shown that. I had a good life from the outside perspective, but I didn't think I was doing anything particularly special, but I thought by retiring by the time I'm 40, now that's something I can hang my hat on. I could be really proud of that because there's not many people that can do it. So that was then, it just gave, I had a way to channel my energy. And actually, although my circumstances didn't really change at work for the preceding kind of 2 to 3 years, it changed everything because I had this thing I was working in the background. I became way better at my job. I had this like freedom and calm confidence and reassurance, like it was heading somewhere rather than am I just stuck here on the corporate ladder for 30 years. So financial independence is about covering your living expenses so you can fundamentally do whatever it is you want to do. And I think it's not about becoming a millionaire, multimillionaire, super rich. It's about hitting that point. Now, that could be living on £1,000 a month, like I was back in the day. I don't live on that now. Or it can mean, if you got quite a lucrative lifestyle, spending 5 to 10K a month. It's about covering that. It's whatever it is that you want it to be. But I help people keep their expenses low, intact, expand their income, and then invest the difference.
And when we're talking about investing the difference, and we're talking about investing in general, like why are we investing it? So, for example, on one hand, we can keep our expenses low, we can earn lots of money. Why bother to invest the rest of the money? Why not just chuck it in a savings account? Let us pay us, 4% returns or 2% returns or whatever we're going to get. It doesn't matter. The point is the money is there, isn't it? It's where I can see it. There's no risk associated with it.
How dare you, Shiv? How dare you? Well, you put it in cash. Look, each to their own, right? And at the moment, you might be able to get like 3% easy access. Yeah. What's inflation at the moment?
10.5%.
Yeah, so you're not getting 3%. If you're looking
you're losing 7%.
You're losing 7% a month. So there's nothing wrong with having a cash buffer. And if you're in the business like we are, a property, actually having lump sums of 6 figures is really handy, especially if you're in a down market, so you can capitalize on that. So for a long-term wealth strategy, fully cash is a poor strategy, but having somewhere between 10 to 25% of your money in cash at all times to pounce on opportunities, I think is a great strategy. So rather than accepting what is now quite a good rate at 3%, because it's come up a lot from that, it was 1 for a number of years.
Zero for a number of years,
0.5, exactly, right? So, it's got a lot better than what it was. Inflation is still high, so you're still technically losing money. Well, the idea with stocks and shares when I first started was, you can get around a 9% return if you're looking investing in like a global index tracker. If you took out the average inflation, which is more like 2 to 3%, then you still got a good return of like 6 to 7% over time off the back of inflation. Property, on the other hand, you could get returns of 2, 3, 4, infinite times more, depending on what type of property deals that you do, but there's way more work involved. So when it comes to investing, the principle is about beating inflation, and the way in which you do that comes down to your goals and your circumstances. Stocks and shares, it's passive, it's easy, it's quick. I could teach anyone to do it in an hour, and they basically got 80% of the way there. Or property can take months, years learning about it, but the potential learning outcome is way bigger. So it's like a risk and reward, and it's not one of those binary things like, which one do I go for? Both. Play both, and that's what I try to do.
And actually, it's really interesting that you say play both, right? Because a lot of people don't. They look at me and they say, "Oh, this guy's in property. He must be selling only property stuff and telling everyone else that everything else is rubbish." Cryptocurrency, he's not doing that because he thinks that's rubbish. Stock market, God, he's not doing that. But hopefully, we'll be in the same boat that I do a little bit of everything. And the reason why I do a little bit of everything is because we can't read the future. We might as well, like you said, it's not binary that some things are good over here, some things are good over here, and we just don't know what it's going to play out like. So we might as well diversify and put our stuff in many baskets. Would you agree?
Oh, well, 100%. Like what I love about stocks and shares is that it's easy. I've got it on autopilot, direct debit goes straight in. It's taken care. I don't even have to think about it. So it takes up 0 time, and yet it brings me dividends in and brings me capital appreciation over time. I don't need that money. I don't use that money. So if there is a crash and it drops 30 or even 60%, then I'll wait. I don't need that money now because I have a business and I have property. I have a couple of businesses, so I'm not leaning on that. And yet, when it comes to property isn't easy. Like, this. Like, everyone kind of talks about the numbers, and you're like, oh, well, it's just a no-brainer to do property, right? Like, I needed to do this years ago. And you start learning. There is a lot to this. There's a lot of risk. There's a huge amount of learning, negotiation, time, legals, regulations. and then the costs start coming in, and then tenants don't pay, or there's things that arise. So it's like that isn't easy. Like you can earn far more in property than you can in stocks, and it's just about trying to assess like what's right for you. And you know what, me or you or anyone else can sit here and say how great stocks are, or how bad they are, or how good or bad property is, but until you've got the monkey off your back and you've got some exposure to them, you'll then start to learn yourself what works for you. And of course, as your means change over time, so will your risk appetite. So will your appetite to actually get involved with stuff. So property might be really, something that draws you in your 20s. But by the time of your late 30s, 40s, you're like, you know what, I've had enough of tenants. Like, actually, I just want to park this in stocks and shares so I can just get on with my life, because the return is more than enough in there. So I think it's about risk tolerance, is about the diversification and ensuring you're not like all in and overly leveraging property, or all in on stocks, and just seeing what kind of suits you. And there's also an important factor, like I think people don't talk about. It's enjoyment. Like, do you enjoy investing? And I do. Like, I like having my fingers in pies. I invest in whiskey as well. Like, I've got some bottles, like the 32-year-old, 25-year-old, like limited edition, which go up over time. Is that a money play? Well, yeah, I'm going up in it, but I'm not really. I haven't sold any, and it's just, I like whiskey. It was just something fun to do. So, like, why not?
Actually, and just going back a couple of steps, we talk about financial independence. Other words for financial independence would also be, for example, financial security and financial freedom. These are the two words that I hear a lot in the clients that I speak to. Do you have any definition or any discrepancy between these two terms? What's the difference between financial security and financial freedom? Have you got any ways of describing the two? Or are they the same thing?
Look, I hear the same thing. I think it depends on who you ask. I think like Tony Robbins has got his own, like, I think he actually uses security, and like, so in a word, no, I band it all together. I think what you may hear other people say is that financial security is like your bare bones. So if you've got your insurance, your tax, your bills, like financial security covers all your mainstay stuff, whilst your holidays, your spending money and stuff like that would be more towards financial freedom or financial independence. I think people can get a little bogged down in all of that stuff. I don't worry about it too much. I think to start with, like, I had all my bills covered out, and I was just trying to cover one with my investment income. So Sky would cost me 50 quid a month, and I was looking to cover, okay, now Sky's covered. Now I'll look to cover something else, my broadband or whatever it is, and chip away that way. But I think some people are very particular about those levels. I'm not.
And I suppose that what you're saying there is it makes sense for, if you have no investments or few investments, or you don't understand investments, to start with trying to get to financial security, because it's a more achievable target. It's looking at your basic bills before you then, once you've hit financial security, you're like, I can cover my, gas, electric, water, council tax, mortgage, for example. Great, that's done. Now I can start looking at financial freedom. And I know a lot of people, when I speak to them, they come to me and they talk to me about, we want to invest for financial security. Fewer people say financial freedom, and the people that say financial freedom are the people that already feel like they have financial security. Whether they actually have or not is different, because when I say feel, I mean because they have a job and it pays them every month, they're like, that's cool, I cover all my expenses anyway, I don't need financial security, I've got financial security. Obviously then we start talking about, well, what happens if you lose your job? But then wouldn't people then say here as well, I'm sort of working through things in my head whilst I'm talking to you, but wouldn't people say, well, what happens if you lose your property?
What if you lose your property?
Yeah, because people say, oh, what if you lose your job? That's why your job isn't secure. You could lose it any time. All right, therefore you don't have financial security. You say, well, no, it's fine. I've got a property that gives me the income of my job, for example. But then you say, well, if you lose your property, what happens when tenants don't pay rent or whatever it might be? How does that affect your financial security?
I suppose it depends on how reliable you are on that specific form of income. So if you reach financial independence solely by property income, and you earn, let's say, for example, £2,000 a month, and you're living on £2,000 a month, then you've only just touched the tip, right? You've only just crossed over. So any one tenant that doesn't pay, you're now technically not covered. So I wouldn't say it's very prudent to put yourself in a position where you need to just cover yourself in one investment line. Like I said, the investment income that I have from stocks as well as property, I don't take any of that. I live on my business income, which pays far more than I need to live on anyway. And that's all outsourced. I have an executive running that. I just do a few hours a week. So that covers me. That covers everything anyway. And I've got these streams that are just boosting up. And
Building your wealth almost. These are building your wealth.
Right? Yeah, exactly. I'm building my wealth, giving me more options. There's more things I can do. I can buy back my time, freeing me up to go after my passion project, which is YouTube, which at the moment doesn't pay me. It's a business.
Yeah,
it pays me nothing. It costs me every month because I'm trying to build. I've got people doing tasks for me at the moment, and the income I'm getting in turn is very low as I'm still trying to grow. So, I think that it could happen if you were fully reliant on, for example, on property or just stocks, because you can have your dividend cut, you can have market crashes. So the way to avoid that is not to put yourself in a situation where you're solely relying on that income month to month. At the very least, when you hit that tip, it's about, like, I would suggest going for at least a year in cash, then as an emergency fund, or as like a runway going into it. For some people, it might even be as much as 2. It really depends. And I would still be seeking, some form of income from somewhere, even if it's a part-time job doing gardening, something you love, that's a hobby. You just rely solely on an investment. I don't think that's the way to live either. Life is just rich. There's so much that we can do. Like, why not just do consulting on something and, pay yourself a high ticket, but charge yourself, a high rate, but, and you just do a few hours. But so I wouldn't recommend anyone go down that path just in case that were to happen.
I think the way that I tackle that challenge is I say, okay, well, let me go past that point. So let's say, in your example, £2,000 was what I needed to earn, and I've now made £2,000 to cover all my expenses. I say, well, great, let's get to 2,500. If I get to 2,500 and now £500 worth of tenants don't pay this month, I'm still good. I don't really mind. I don't really care. Also, if a tenant moves out and there's a void period, or if there's a works to do at the property, there's something gets a bit more expensive, the gas, the electric, whatever, I'm still good and I'm still covered. And of course, this is like on one asset class, on property. So maybe that I have, instead of having 4 properties, I actually go and get 5 properties because now I have one spare. If I could do the same thing on, my other asset classes, whether it's the stock market, whether it's the crypto market, whether it's, just having money in cash or whatever it might be, then I always have this kind of buffer across the entire piece. And then on top of that, like you said, also underneath that, underpinning all that, you have, what I refer to as the emergency fund, the money that's in the bank, that it's always there. It doesn't matter what happens. It just gives me breathing space. If the market changes tomorrow and I need some breathing space, I've got, whether it's 6 months or a year, as you call it, in the bank, that covers all my expenses. And I don't need to change my life for 6 more months. And in 6 months' time, I will run out of money, so I need to do something. But it gives me that breathing space to react.
Yeah, it's a great point. One of my friends, actually, when I was fairly new into invest, I've been investing for a few years at that point, and he was way ahead of me, and we're talking like millionaire status. And he said he had a figure which he said was around 500k, and he had a timeline to hit that. I think it was by the time he was 50, and he did it comfortably before that point. And then he said, so when I hit it, like a lot of people in the FIRE community, which is financial independence, retire early, when they hit that number, then they're done, and they just travel the world or do whatever they want. And for him, he loved investing so much. He just thought, why would I stop?
Why would I stop? Yeah.
I so enjoyed getting to this point. I'm not just going to no longer invest. I'm just going to keep going and keep growing it. And so when he said that to me, because I was obviously miles away and wishing to be in his position, that made total sense. And I found very much the same to be true. And like you just explained there, it builds up more of a buffer. It gives you more options. You never know what's around the corner. I enjoy it.
The other way of building that buffer, actually, so one is by getting 5 properties instead of 4 properties, for example. Another way of doing it is by saying, as you said earlier at the beginning of this conversation, let's just live on a bit less. Now, I'm not saying live on £800 or £1,000, but I'm saying, if you're the kind of person that spends £6,000 a month, well, spend £5,000 a month. And now you have the income that's coming in for £6,000 a month, but you're only spending 5. So now you're building that buffer that way as well. So there's 2 ways, isn't it? In fact, like you said at the beginning of this conversation, you can reduce your expenses or you increase your income, one or the other. And that's the way to create it. The next thing I want to talk to you about here is when we talk about, we talked about earlier that, it's not a binary choice between stocks and shares and the property market. There's pros and cons. There's loads of things that we need to consider, as well as the pros and cons about, ourselves, our circumstances, how much money we have, etc., what other investments we have. But here's a question that I get asked often, right? Let's say I have 50 grand and I go, well, do I do stock or do I do property? Now, of course, the answer is, well, I could do both, right? But I probably can't because, well, with stocks, I could do it with £1 or £3. But with property, I probably need a lump sum of 50 grand just to get started. So on one hand, we go, let's do property, and then hopefully it will grow in value over the next 10 years. On the other hand, we say, well, property is going to be too much. This way I can diversify into stocks. What's your opinion on that?
So you're talking from someone now that has nothing.
Yeah, wait, exactly. Have no investments, have a job, and they now have a buffer of 50 grand or whatever it might be. Well, let's say 50, because 50 is a good number, and that's kind of like the price of one property. So you've got 50 grand. You can either do one property or you can do stocks, but you cannot do both because a property costs 50 grand.
Yeah, I mean, for me, if you're going from a position where you're looking to become financially independent, you're starting from scratch, you can't compete with property. Like stocks can't compete with it. So if you want an easier life, you could sign up to stocks like I did initially.
Yeah.
If I went back in time, what would I do? I wouldn't have put it all into stocks. It's the long, slow, passive, easy route. So it's very easy, but you're going to pay for it in time. There's a cost to all of this. Or if you want to get there quicker, perhaps, look, you know what? If you love your job and you're very content doing this for the next 20, 30 years, and you don't want the spare time and the hassle of property, then the right answer would be stocks. If you're looking at your job and it's a bit, and like I'm a bit disgruntled, I want to make something of myself, I want to be free, then there is no argument. You'd go down the property if it was only those two. If you really felt disgruntled, I would put the third one in there, which, to be honest, what caps both of those is business in general. So having a lump sum of like 10 to 20K that you dedicate to training and a coach. So if you wanted to do something like, let's just say you want to become a YouTuber.
Yeah.
You love gardening. I just want to do that. I would pay money to spend time with someone that's doing exactly what I want to do, my dream. And I'd pay for coaching, for courses, for reading, everything, and the setup costs to get up and running with that. So maybe a proportion of that, maybe 20% towards that area. And I would keep money aside to kind of go into the business angle. If you're really lost and you don't know what to do, property is just, you know what you're going to get with it. Like you say, it's as safe as houses. It's very reliable. It's the best returning, reliable, safe investment there is. So it's always one of those answers, Shiv. It's a great question. It's like, it kind of does depend. It depends on a few things. But what are your thoughts?
Well, it's interesting because a lot of our clients will be in a position where they'll either have a job or they'll have a business, one or the other. But when they have a business, they will be in a business where they work in the business and their time is taken up by the business. So these are the two positions. And it's from that point that their question is coming. They've got the business, they've set up their families, they've got their house, they've got their car, everything's good. And they've finally managed to save up some money, and they finally got the headspace to go, I should do something about this. I should put that money to good use because it's sitting in the bank. It's been sitting in the bank for the last 2 years, Huw. It's been sitting in the bank for the last 2 years. And guess what? It's worth 3p more than it was 3 years ago because interest is so bad. And so now we're saying, well, we should put it into something. I know I should do it. I've heard it all over the news. My friends and family have all been telling me that I should be investing in something. I should invest my money. But God, me, it's like so hard to figure out what we need to invest in, how we need to invest in. We all know, inverted commas, stock market's very risky. We don't want to be going into the stock market. We all know, by God, have you seen what's happened with the crypto market? Fallen off a cliff, gone up like crazy, gone up, down off a cliff again. And then we know about property as well, which is property is good. It's long term, it's stable, it's secure, it's all those good things. But flipping out, it's a lot of money, isn't it? If you make one little mistake and you've invested all that 50, 60 grand, there's this fear I think people have of losing all their money. And I think that's the fear that stops them from kind of getting involved with property.
Yeah, I mean, I think I would say it's impossible because you could over leverage yourself, but I would say it's very unlikely you're going to lose all of your money. You may lose all of your gains and some, but it's unlikely that you'll lose all of your money. And the same holds true for stocks. In likelihood, looking at the worst crashes, you're looking at like 60% is going to, like, that is an atrocious year. It's more likely 30 to 50 would be a bad crash. We're talking 2008 style crash now, so half of your money. But you wouldn't ever invest in stocks and shares unless you're prepared to leave that money in there for 10 years from where I am today. If you need that money in the next 2 years, you need to be pulling that out of stocks and putting it somewhere else like bonds or somewhere a little bit more stable if you need it within 2 years. And my general rule of thumb is if you've got that 50K and like, I'm going to need that for my daughter in 2 years going through uni, then you do not put it in stocks and shares. It's as simple as that. And actually, if you had a very short time period, property, again, it can work against you if you're forced to do it within a 2 year time period. But I would prefer to hedge my bet on property because I negotiate the entry price with the vendor. I can choose or not to add value to the property. I can then sell at a price that I want to sell it at. Or stock market, you can't do any of that. You can buy it.
It's
You
the
can buy as
market
many,
price.
foods as you want from Marks and Spencers if you invest in them, or as diesel from BP, but you ain't shifting the stock price. And you're going to have to wait for it to go up or down. So
Yeah.
if time is restricted, I would move away from the stock market.
And okay, so here's another point then, Hugh. Lots of people, the reason why they are scared of investing is because they're worried about a recession. We hear about the word recession on the news, and it already sends like creeps coming up and down our spines and up our chills up our arms. What is a recession? Like, why is it so bad? Why does everyone have it? Why does it have this bad rap, basically? And why is everyone so scared of it?
Look, it's the equivalent of like being fearful going to the gym and worrying about getting stiff. Okay, you're going to get stiff and tight. Like, I don't want to get stiff and tight. You are going to, and it's just part of the process, because then super compensation happens off the back of it, and you get stronger and you get faster. So with the stock market, it's not a case of I'm worried about a recession. You will get a recession. If you're investing, you should be investing for a long enough time period, and I use 10 years. You will find a recession within that period, more than likely. At least you'll have a significant drop in the market of like 10 to 30%, without a doubt.
Yeah.
So it's something to be expected. And the way to conquer that is to do dollar cost averaging. So to just put enough money in over time where it weathers out the storm. So if it drops 30% over 3 months, you're increasingly buying more and more stocks each month at a lower price. If you're prepared to invest for the long term, it's like a cheat code, because I'm just going to wait until I finish. It's like me and you, we're going to go for a race. And where's the end? There is no end. I'll just keep running until Shiv stops. Like, it's that time. Like, if you keep investing and you don't have that time horizon because you've got businesses and property, I'll just wait until it comes back. And if it takes kind of like 18 months to come back, it can take slightly longer for that time period to come back up. So it drops over 18 months. It'll take more than 18 months to come back, but it so far historically has always come back. So
and this is that saying, I think, no, it's okay. It's that saying, I think, Warren Buffett said. It says, everybody wants to become rich, but nobody wants to become rich slowly. They want to become rich quickly, and that's why it doesn't happen for them.
Yeah. It's another saying is like, the idea is that you buy low and sell high, but what most people do is buy high and then sell low. No one wants to buy low, and because the reason that you buy low is there's something happening in the world. There's a lot of uncertainty. There's jobs that are being lost. There's the cost of living crisis, recessions, and that's the time to invest in the stock market whenever there's like fear, danger, worry. But that's where you get your deals. And is
that the same for the property market? Like, let's say, for example, right now we're in this fear, danger, worry place. A lot of people are sort of sitting on their hands with property. Is that the same?
Without a doubt, like Warren Buffett's also, his famous quote is be greedy when others are fearful, and fearful when others are greedy. So you really need to take heed of that. That when your nan is talking to you about Bitcoin, get the hell out. Like, when everyone's talking about it, like, you should be worried because you're into a bubble, or NFTs and everyone's banging on about it. You need to avoid that, and you need to really keep your ear to the ground when people are like warning you about going into something. That's normally where the most opportunity is. So I think that counts for kind of crypto, stocks, property, and almost any investment.
Yeah. Okay, cool. And then just moving on to allocating your assets. So let's say now I've not just got 50 grand, I've got, 200 grand, and I've got to put this money somewhere. I have no investments whatsoever. What is the mechanism for me to figure out where I put it, how I put it, what I do with it? Because a lot of people just say, well, look, I don't trust the stock market because it's too volatile, and so I'm just going to put it all into property. Or they'll say, well, obviously, cryptocurrency is just a big con, so we're not going to do that. Have you got any way of trying to figure out how to allocate your assets, how to get your money across different asset classes?
The magic formula?
The magic formula, please. Yeah, my God.
Yeah.
Let me know,
okay,
please.
Well, you need to sign up to my link to get access to the medical. No, of course, this is an expansion upon my point on the 50 grand. It just gives you more means and opportunity. So with stocks, there's something known as the 4% safe withdrawal rate. So a lot of your listeners will have pensions, and that money will be invested in stock market across broad spectrums into bonds as well, and maybe other avenues on top of that. Now, when it comes to withdrawing that pension, there was a Trinity study done back, I think it was in the late 90s, and they suggested that if you withdraw your pension pot at a 4% rate per year, then technically, in most cases, you could go your whole life in retirement living off that. Mm-hmm. So we talked before that the stock market will return around 9%, take away a couple of percent for inflation. So let's say 7% is a fairly conservative average to say you can expect from the stock market over time. So if you had 200K, it would go up £214,000 in the stock market. You would take out 4%, which is 8,000, and then you'd have more than the 200 grand than you had left over. Notice my maths a little avoiding that.
Yeah.
So you'd have a little bit more. Then you'd have 7% on top of that the following year and 7% on top of that. Now, the stock market doesn't work like that. It might drop 20% one year, go up 50% the next year, then 12% one year. But it would average out around that percentage point. So let's just go back on point now. With 200 grand at 4% safe withdrawal rate that you would take it out at, you could take more, you could take less. That's going to give you 8 grand a year. Would you be able to live on 8 grand a year? How happy would you be with 8 grand a year? I would say most people, it won't be enough. So I would be inclined, if you're starting from zero, to again look at that money with property for the vast majority of it. And I would have an allocation for business and going down a business avenue where I think here's something I'm just thinking out loud here, Shiv, as well, because I'm thinking for some of your listeners, when it comes to property, it's very intimidating. If it's anything like me, it's very intimidating to go into. It took me about 2.5 years to pull the trigger on it. Now, what you can do is utilize that money and give that to someone like me or yourself, or someone that is already in that. Yeah. And you can bypass a lot of the learning opportunity. So you can pay for a property purchase price and the development and keep costs really low as a result, vastly improving the returns that you get. You can get someone like Shiv, as an example, to help you through that process. And then once you refinance it, you can pull your money back out and you split the profits 50-50. So there is a way to make property more passive if people are concerned about it. But I think my answer wouldn't fluctuate hugely from the 50 grand marker, because I don't think 200 grand in stocks and shares will be enough for people to retire on as it is. And I'd always keep an eye on what business opportunities you're interested in and to have money allocated for that, because there's no greater return in business. It does trump property. It's the only thing.
I think that I agree with you about the business point. I think that the thing for a lot of people that will be listening to this is they're thinking, gosh, I don't have a great idea and I have no idea how to do anything. And, I've got a job and I've got to put bills. I don't have the money to go, let me go and start this business. It might take me 50 grand, 100 grand, 200 grand, 20 grand. I don't know, whatever it is. I'm effectively, I've got a good job. I get paid a good salary. I support my family. I'm in a good place. I'm in a good place and I've got no desire to sacrifice that place. What I do want to do is I want to take the excess that I've managed to save up over the last few years, and that's been sitting in the account, and I want to put it into something that I know for the long term is going to work for me. And it's going to mean that, when I get into my 60s or my 70s or my 80s and I don't want to do this anymore, I have the thing that's backing me up. But I think the important thing, going back to what you were saying earlier, 10-year time horizon, absolutely. But most of our clients have a 20-year time horizon, a 30-year. When are you going to sell this property? We're never going to sell the property because it's just going to give us the income forever. And then we're going to pass it to our kids, and then they're going to pass it to their kids. And, maybe at some point they might sell it, but there's no intention to sell it.
Yeah, when I'm using that 10-year horizon, that's the minimum base. That's what I'd like people to be looking at as a minimum horizon, and everything else is cheddar on top, So if they're looking for like 20, 30 years, and even more so generational, then that's even better. But I don't think my opinion would differ hugely. If you want to maximize returns, go into property yourself. If you're concerned about your time because of the business that you're involved with, have a look at funding someone that's involved with property, because there's always opportunities there. You can be the financer, they can be the operator, and together you split the business. So you can kind of get a touch of property without the time commitment as well. So it's a nice win.
Yeah, absolutely. And then there's also the third option, which not trying to promote our service, but ultimately it's well, I still want to own the property. I don't want somebody else to own it. I don't want to own it with somebody else. What if that doesn't work out? Well, I still can do it all myself. I can just get somebody else to go and do all the running around for me. So then I end up with the property. Yes, my return is going to be a little bit lower because I'm going to have to pay somebody else to do it. But at least it gets done for me whilst I'm at work earning my money. And I think a lot of our clients have realized their value is in going to work and earning money. They're good earners. Comparatively, compared to the rest of the world, you're good earners. If you're a good earner, do the thing that you're good at, which is earn the money, and then give the money to whoever it might be. You don't go and fix your own toilets. You get a plumber because he's good at fixing toilets. you don't go and, maybe if you don't have the time, whatever, go and spend your time buying property, for example, give it to somebody who knows how to do that, is an expert in that field, etc. So that could be another way of doing it.
Yeah, I was trying to put you out of business there, Shiv, but you're absolutely right. Like, it isn't a binary, you do property or you get someone to do it all. You've got a lovely little stepping stone there, which you take away a lot of the risk and the fear associated with property. And you can also, I'm guessing that will save you time and money as well from the customer basis. So it's a nice kind of like interim if they aren't too sure which one they want to go down.
Yeah, absolutely. And then I think the other interesting thing that I like about property that I just want to touch on is that, I can buy the property today, let's just say, and this is obviously just round numbers, but I'll buy it for 150 grand today. And I receive my rental income, whatever that might be, 2, 3, 5 grand a year, which is not a great deal. It's not going to change my life. And of course, even if I have 4 of them, it'll be 20 grand a year. It's still not going to change my life because, in a job that I'm working in, I earn a lot more than 20 grand and whatever. But I think the great thing about property is that if I now have 5 properties that are worth 150 grand over a space of 10 years or 15 years or 20 years, now I've got 5 properties that are worth 300 grand each, but my mortgage is still what it was. So now instead of having 5 times 150, I've got 5 times 300, or the equivalent of what's that? 150, 300, 600, 750,000 pounds worth of growth over that 10 or 15 or 20 year period, which is just basically free money. It's money. It's my money because it's my properties. It's stuck inside my house. And of course, one of the ways that I can release it is by refinancing my house and take that money out, and then I can use it to do all the good things that I want to do with it. So I think the reason why and again, all the asset classes are worth investing in, but the reason I like property is because if I get involved, sooner rather than later, not only am I receiving the income, but it's also growing in value. At some point in the future, I can refinance it, take the money out, and go and do whatever I want to do with that. And it's a way to fast track getting the money effectively.
Yeah. I mean, as soon as I saw that and understood that back, I think in 2018-19, when I was first looking into property, it blew my mind. And I went out for lunch with a guy because I told him what I was doing with stocks and shares and my business. And he was like, do you want to go for a coffee and we'll share? Because I'm doing property. I'm interested in business and stocks. You want to share numbers? Are you open to that? I was like, yeah, I love it. Let's go. I love sharing this stuff. Let's get into it. And he opened his books and showed me this property deal where he put so much money. I think it was like 19K in. No, sorry, it was. I remember these numbers. It was like 22K in, and he pulled 19 out, and it was earning multiple £100 a month, and he'd only left 3 grand in the deal. I was like, wait a minute. You've only got 3,000 left in there because you pulled all the rest of the money out, but you're earning hundreds and hundreds of pounds a month profit. And I was like, calculator, like furiously.
Yeah. What's my ROI?
Well, ROI is like in the 100. I was like, that's ridiculous. He said, yeah, that's property. And I was like, don't look at, I don't shut my stocks and shares work. I was like, I am now doing property. I was like, I can't unsee what I've just seen. I'm now forever dedicated to getting into property, and that changed my life.
And no doubt he had the same reaction when you were like, yeah, so I just put it in, don't touch it ever again. And you're like, what? He was like, oh my God, I can't believe it's that easy. You just, put your money in the stock market, never touch it again. Look at it in 30 years' time. It'll be more than when you put it in.
He was not as excited as I was, I can tell you that, because I was like, I just couldn't believe. I actually thought he was lying or doing something illegal. And it was like, no, this is legitimate. This is how you get wealthy. And yeah, it just changed my view on it forever.
Fantastic. I want to just take this in the last segment of our little podcast here into a different direction, because one of the things that really attracted me to you, Huw, was our mutual respect for and understanding of the universe and love and just going with that flow, going with the flow of the universe, trusting it to take you where it's supposed to go. I know you don't expect this at all, and you haven't expected this, but do you want to talk about that at all?
I wasn't expecting this at all, Shiv. I'm someone that kind of sits in between the kind of A-type business, competitive driven mindset to someone that's very balanced and peaceful and into meditation, mindfulness. I'm not religious, but I would say I'm more spiritual than religious. I'm someone that kind of I believe in energy and things like that. So I think, like many things in life, you've got the yin and yang sign. It's just about balance. It's about not being too extreme with everything that you do. Some people probably need to listen to more kind of chill out music or audiobooks on how to live with less and be grateful for what you have. And some people need a real kick up the arse, Gary Vee style. There isn't the answer. It's really just trying to acknowledge and have the self-awareness in yourself for where you're currently sat and what might be best for you. And this isn't like, I don't have this down. I can get trapped on either side, and it's probably more towards the driven side. But whenever I realign myself and take that time, fully going through my meditation practice and living more mindfully and calmly, I love who I am. And I was speaking to my other half about this recently, and she was saying about like isolation and kind of wishing to, sometimes I just kind of had enough of people. I was like, from my end, I'm like the opposite. Like I adore people, and I like to have my own space, but I just get I get so much for being in the presence of other people. I find them fascinating. I love learning how people tick and connecting with people. And there's just a feeling that I get with other human beings that I don't really get with anything else. So I don't know if any of this is resonating with any of you. If you want to take this in any direction you want to, Shiv. But actually, funny enough, when I started hearing you talk about your thoughts on spirituality and energies in the universe and everything, I just thought he's an interesting guy. I really want to speak to Shiv. So that's interesting that you kind of picked up on that in myself as well.
I definitely saw it in you, and that was one of the things that, and it's like you see something and it draws you towards that person. Now you're like, I want to speak to that person. Now, I wasn't friends with you until that point, and then I was like, all right, I need to be friends with this guy. But it is a really interesting thing, because even when you bring it down to kind of like investment and property and stuff, people say all the time, money is just energy. And if you're at the point where you're like struggling to make money to make your ends meet, it's very difficult for you to see that, because you're just seeing it very transactionally. Like, I need this money to pay these bills so that I can, live ultimately. So I can just have a good, quiet life. Once you have opened up yourself to the idea of financial security, financial independence, financial freedom, and start to have a couple of investments, this is my personal experience, is I've found that I've just been more relaxed about things happening, because I'm not stressed about them happening anymore. And it's the silliest things, I used to get really stressed when I I don't know, left my water bottle on the train or something like that. Now it's like, I've left my water bottle on the train. I can't do anything about it. I'll just buy another one. It's 20 quid. It's not going to change my life. I'll buy another one. Whereas previously, I used to just beat myself up over it. And I think partly is because I think I have this realization that the universe is just working in my favor. It's working to push me to where I need to, where I don't even know that I need to be, where I want to be. It's moving me in the right direction, but I just need to trust it. And I think you're very similar to that.
Yeah, I like to I like to talk myself into success. And I remember when I went for one of my second sales role, I don't know what came over me. This was like out of character for me, but I sat there and they said, how do you think you'll do in sales? And something to that effect. And I said, unequivocally, I was so certain of it as well. I said,
amazing.
I will be the best salesperson in this office, and I won't do it by any underhand techniques or cheating or anything like that. I'll do it because I'll outwork everyone. I'll understand who the best person is, what they do. I will model it, but I will make it my own, and I'll improve upon that, and I'll work harder. I'll either be better than them or I'll work hard. It'll be one of the two things, and I will be the best person you've ever had. And I was like, shit, that was bold, Huw. What was that? And they loved it. They ate it up. And within a couple of years, I became the salesperson of the year. They gave me an award in front of the office, and they kind of told that story. And it's something I've held on to, because I'll try and speak myself into success wherever I can and talk a big game and say what I'm trying to achieve, because it just increases the chances of it happening. And again, I do it because it's fun as well. Like, I find it exciting to kind of go after that. I don't need it. It doesn't define me, but it's fun to put yourself out there. And I think I held myself back up until that point by not doing that, and maybe actually doing the opposite. And I don't know if I'm good enough, and saying those words, and I don't know if this is for me. Like, I just truly believe that as long as it doesn't defy the laws of physics, I'm capable of absolutely anything. It's just solely on me. I might be deluded. I might be an idiot for saying that, but look, I choose to believe it, and it serves me. And I like the fact that I do that. And I wish people would back themselves a little more, and do so by verbally putting themselves out there and allowing themselves, like, through words, to kind of, anyone can become financially independent, can become a millionaire, can change the world in somehow, however they want. But just, put it out there and make it happen.
Yeah, brilliant. Hugh, you are such an inspirational character, and I'm really looking forward to our energies like trying a bit more over the next year, over the next couple of years, because I think the stuff that you're doing is so valuable, it's so useful, and personal plug. He's not paying me for this, but I watch his stuff and I go, wow, I've learned something that I didn't know that. And so, if you are interested in just sorting out your finances, getting the first few rungs on the ladder sorted, how do I even go about it? What's the first steps? Then honestly, Hugh's the person that you want to be following. Huw, how can they get in touch with you? How can they follow you? What's the way to, find you?
Well, I've got a website which we're going to be launching soon. It's Huw's View. That's spelled HUWSVIEW. So huwsview.com. And it's Huw's View on all of the socials. And you can go onto YouTube. You can either type Huw's View or Huw Davies, my name, and it will pop up. But
Davies, Davies, isn't it?
That's right.
Davies.
Yeah, that's it. And Shiv, I just want to extend that right back at you, mate, because coming into the circle, I came in, I've only been here a couple of years in the group that we're associated with. And Shiv is always someone that has done exceptionally well by the looks of it over the years. And I've been looking up to you and I've been inspired by you. So equally, I'm really looking forward to getting to know you over the next couple of years. And I think these people listening to this podcast, yourself and the guests that you have, are really on the right path anyway, mate. They're in good hands. So thank you for the opportunity. I've thoroughly enjoyed it. We'll have to do it again sometime.
Brilliant. Thanks, mate. Speak to you soon.
Take care. See ya.